Somewhere inside the male body sits a gland roughly the size of a walnut that hoards more zinc than almost any other tissue you have. Something like 10 times the concentration found almost anywhere else in the body. That gland is the prostate, and for most of history, nobody had much reason to think it was doing anything unusual with a trace mineral most people barely think about. Zinc itself is easy to overlook. It shows up in tiny amounts, measured in milligrams rather than grams, tucked into red meat, shellfish, beans, nuts, and whole grains. Inside the body, though, zinc is anything but a minor player. It helps run more than 300 different enzymes, everything from healing a cut to copying DNA correctly when a cell divides. Zinc is also central to keeping the immune system running properly, which is part of why a real deficiency tends to show up as more infections, slower wound healing, and weaker resistance to illness overall. Zinc deficiency in humans was not even confirmed to exist until the 1960s, when researchers studying unexplained cases of stunted growth and delayed puberty in rural villages in Iran and Egypt traced the cause back to diets that were extremely low in zinc. Unlike some minerals, the body cannot store much of a zinc reserve for later. Go without enough of it in your diet for long enough, and levels start dropping fairly quickly. So why would one small gland, tucked below the bladder, decide to hoard so much of it? The answer comes down to a chemistry trick that almost no other cell in the body performs. The prostate's main job is producing part of the fluid that carries sperm, and that fluid needs to be loaded with a compound called citrate. Almost every other cell in your body burns citrate for energy as part of its normal metabolism, feeding it into a cycle that generates fuel for the cell. Healthy prostate cells do something different. They deliberately stockpile huge amounts of zinc, specifically to jam the enzyme that would otherwise burn that citrate away. The result is a gland that behaves almost like a citrate warehouse, with zinc acting as the lock that keeps the warehouse door shut. It is a genuinely unusual piece of biology, and it is the main reason prostate tissue ends up carrying such an outsized zinc concentration compared with the rest of the body. So here is a question worth sitting with for a second. If zinc is this essential to a healthy prostate, wouldn't simply taking more of it be an easy way to protect the gland? The honest answer turns out to be a lot messier than that, and the story starts by zooming out to prostate cancer itself. Prostate cancer is not some rare condition sitting at the margins of medicine. It is the second most commonly diagnosed cancer among men worldwide, with well over 1 million new cases every year. Rates vary enormously from country to country, far more than genetics alone would explain, and that gap has long pointed a finger at diet and environment as part of the story. Nobody has ever nailed down exactly which dietary factor matters most, which is exactly the kind of open question that keeps researchers busy for decades at a time. Zinc became a suspect fairly early on, for a reason that traces straight back to that citrate hoarding trick inside the gland. Decades ago, researchers comparing cancerous prostate tissue against healthy tissue kept noticing the same strange pattern. The cancerous samples measured lower in zinc, again and again. Nobody could fully explain why at the time, only that the pattern kept showing up, study after study, almost too consistent to be coincidence. Around that same era, zinc had already picked up a very different kind of reputation, one that had nothing to do with cancer research at all. Oysters, which happen to be one of the most zinc-dense foods on the planet, have carried a reputation as an aphrodisiac for centuries, supposedly traced back to Casanova's own diet. There is at least a grain of real biology behind that old reputation, since zinc genuinely plays an important role in testosterone production and reproductive health. But being important for reproductive health and being protective against prostate cancer turned out to be two very different questions. Numbers, it turned out, were exactly where things got complicated. One long-running study followed a group of men for years and found something alarming at high doses. Those taking 75 milligrams or more of supplemental zinc a day for over 15 years showed an increased risk, specifically of the deadliest form of the disease. A separate, much larger cohort tracked more than 46,000 health professionals for 14 years and landed on a similar warning. Men taking 100 milligrams or more of supplemental zinc daily faced more than double the risk compared with people who took none at all. Dietary zinc from ordinary food, not pills, told a murkier story across different studies, sometimes showing no connection to prostate cancer risk at all, and sometimes showing a mild protective link depending on the population studied. So depending on which study you happen to pick up, zinc looked protective, risky, or completely irrelevant, and that contradiction sat unresolved in the scientific literature for years. The confusion was not unique to the prostate either. Lower blood zinc has turned up again and again in people with breast cancer, bladder cancer, and several digestive tract cancers. Later reviews confirmed the prostate pattern with real numbers. One pooled analysis of 10 studies found prostate cancer patients measuring significantly lower in serum zinc, and a separate review of 114 studies found essentially the same thing again, in a completely different set of patients. The same story showed up in organs that have nothing to do with the prostate. A review of 6 bladder cancer studies, and another covering 36 breast cancer studies, involving more than 5,700 women, both found lower blood zinc in cancer patients compared with healthy people. That made it look, for a while, like low zinc might simply be something that happens generally once cancer of almost any kind takes hold in the body. Except that is not the whole story. In colorectal cancer specifically, higher dietary zinc intake has actually been linked to a lower risk, the exact opposite pattern seen in prostate research. So zinc's relationship with cancer looks like it depends heavily on which tissue you are talking about, not one universal rule that applies the same way everywhere in the body. Individually, most of the studies feeding into this puzzle were fairly small, and they kept disagreeing with each other in the details, which is exactly the kind of mess that calls for pooling everyone's data together in one place. So after combing through the scientific literature and pooling everyone's data together, what did the numbers actually show about zinc and the men who go on to develop prostate cancer? An international team of researchers set out to answer exactly that, searching multiple major medical databases up through May of 2023 for every relevant study they could track down. After screening close to 2,000 records down to the ones that actually fit, they landed on 52 eligible studies, covering more than 163,000 people across dozens of countries, from the United States and Nigeria to Turkey and China. Most of what they found were case control studies comparing men who already had prostate cancer against healthy men, though a handful were larger cohorts that had tracked healthy men for years, in some cases for nearly 3 decades, to see who eventually developed the disease. Measuring zinc meant getting creative with samples. Researchers drew fasting morning blood, clipped a few centimeters of scalp hair, collected toenail clippings, and in some studies even used laser-based imaging to map zinc directly across thin slices of prostate tissue. The pattern that emerged was remarkably consistent. Men with prostate cancer measured significantly lower in zinc across blood serum, hair samples, and prostatic fluid or tissue itself. The steepest drop by far showed up directly inside the prostate, right where that zinc and citrate trick is supposed to be happening in the first place. But 2 measurements barely moved at all. Zinc levels in nail samples showed no meaningful difference between the 2 groups, and neither did how much zinc people reported eating or taking as supplements. That combination is the real clue. If intake looked essentially the same between men with and without prostate cancer, while tissue zinc diverged so sharply, diet alone cannot be the whole explanation. The more likely story points back to that citrate trick. As healthy cells turn malignant, they appear to abandon the citrate hoarding behavior and switch to burning citrate for energy like ordinary cells, losing their grip on zinc somewhere along the way. Inside cells that still hold onto it, zinc has been shown to stall runaway division by helping stop the cell cycle at a specific checkpoint, and to switch on a gene that puts the brakes on growth. It also appears to block a signaling protein that tumors otherwise use to ramp up production of factors that build new blood vessels and help cancer spread to other parts of the body. On top of that, zinc has been linked to triggering programmed cell death directly, activating a family of enzymes and shifting the balance of proteins inside the cell towards self-destruction rather than survival. Lose the ability to hold onto zinc, and a cell may lose several of those safety brakes all at the same time, not just one isolated function. As for the supplement question raised earlier, the researchers behind this review are careful to say their findings describe an association observed in tissue, not proof that taking more zinc would prevent or treat the disease, especially given how mixed the high-dose supplement data already looked. They are upfront about the limitations too. The 52 studies varied a lot in methods and populations, in ways the team could not fully explain, and there were signs of possible publication bias specifically in the serum and hair results. What is left is one of the more consistent findings in prostate cancer research to date. A mineral this gland is built to hoard keeps vanishing almost exactly where the disease takes hold, a pattern too repeatable now to dismiss as coincidence, even though nobody can yet say for certain whether restoring it would change anything at all.